Hey everybody. Okay, you can still do some learning even though I am not there. So the learning will happen if you follow the instructions, and when I say pause a video and do a problem, then do it. Of course, you can just rush through the video, not do any of your own thinking, just watch me do the thinking, but that will not be you learning. So please follow the directions. You'll have plenty of time. I'll make sure you even have some free time at the end. You don't have to do this for 80 minutes. Just make sure that when I say to pause the video and start and solve a problem, then that's what you do, okay? And that will be maximal learning. So what we are trying to figure out, the holy grail, what we are trying to get to, is when we have quadratic equations where you have an A, a B, and a C. So like here, this one, you have an A of 2, a B of 3, a C of negative 48. Like, we don't know how to solve those. And, way back when they didn't understand this stuff, they didn't know either. So last class, we started making baby steps. We started saying, hey, let's simplify this problem, and maybe we can solve those problems. So let me just quickly go through. I got 1, 2, 3 review problems, okay? So you're about to solve them. So this is what we're aiming for. We won't get there today, but definitely next class. When I get back, I'll show you what they figured out, okay? For now, we did have this kind of problem where there's just an A, okay? So let me give you an example. So let's say you have 3x squared equals 6. Okay, notice that we have an A of 3. So you guys try that and pause the video, and then we'll see if you got the right answer. All right, hopefully you got it. Here's how you do it. It's just like solving linear stuff. Do the same thing to both sides. So divide both sides by 3, and I get x squared equals 2. And then how do you undo a square? You square root both sides. So bam and bam. And what I showed you was 2 things. If you're just doing raw math and you're not doing this for carpenters, you're not doing this for a real life thing, you can leave it as a square root sign. Bam. Okay? But also you have to consider the negative case, because it turns out if you put in negative square root 2 in for this x, well, when you square a negative, negative times negative is a positive, right? So you gotta do, oh, that's great. I'm recording for my class. Thank you very much. Can you shut that door, please? And you're not shutting it very fast. Okay, that's my kid. So in any case, hold on a second. Okay. So you can leave it like this. That's totally fine. If you do need to give somebody the decimal, that's that will happen. So when you're working with real life problems or something, and it's not raw math, I think this is roughly 1.414, and either of these is great. Okay, great. So that was the just A. We did just A. It was fine, perfect. Let's bump up the difficulty a bit. Let's add a C, okay? So we also learned last class how to solve it if I have, say, here, wait, let me just be nice and consistent. Just A. And now let's add the C, okay? Just A and C. So let's do 3x squared plus 12 equals 24. Okay, so pause the video and see if you can solve that one. Okay, so here's what I would do. I would take 12 away from both sides. Take 12 away from both sides. And that leaves you 3x squared equals 12. Then divide both sides by 3. You have x squared equals 4. and then square root both sides, and you get x equals plus or minus 2, because the square root of 4 is 2. Okay? So, Shazam. All right? Okay, great. Now, we bumped up the difficulty a little bit more. That was just all using sort of like our linear equation strategies, where you can do the same thing to both sides and everything works, everything's great. You have to deviate from those tried and true methods for some of these kinds of equations. So let's try where we have just an A and a B. Okay, just A and B now. So I have that here. So let's say that I have x squared plus 3x equals 0. Okay, pause the video and solve this thing, and I'm going to tell you right now, this is a factor-tractor situation. So go for it. Okay, so hopefully you remembered, you can pull an x out of both of those terms. So you have x and then x plus 3 equals 0, like that. And then we learned the nice thing about that is we've turned this thing with an addition problem into a number times another number equals 0. And what has to be true then about one of those numbers? One of them would have to be 0 for you to get a 0 over here. So what will make this be 0? Well, if x equals 0. What would make this be 0? If x equals -3, and Shazam, we have our answers. Okay? Now, the one, I suspect that most of you just cruised through that problem. If you didn't, don't worry about it. When I get back, I can iron out anything. One thing that I didn't tell you, though, is I'm being nice to you right now with the A. I don't know, can you tell that the A here is a 1? Because there's no number out in front of the x squared, but you could always put a 1 there and it wouldn't matter. So we have an A of 1 and a B of 3 right now, right? Let's make the A not be 1. So let me give you this one. See, this one I suspect you will not be able to solve. You'll run into a problem, and that's totally fine. I'll show it to you. So here I have 3x squared plus 6x equals 0. So pause the video, try to figure this one out, and then I'll show you how to do it. Okay, so here's how you would figure this out. So I'm noticing that I got a 3 as a factor as well as the x. So I'm going to pull a 3x out. And so that will give me x plus 2 equals 0. This is actually not that bad, is it? There's another one that I want you to do. What did I mean to write there? I guess. I don't. Okay. Anyway, so can you tell this one is not the hard one I was thinking? X equals 0 and x equals -2, and we're done, right? You guys good with that one? Okay. But I want to give you one that is more difficult, darn it. What am I trying to think of? So if I do, oh, maybe if I just reverse that. Yeah, let's try, because then 6x squared, 3, 2x. Yes. Okay, this is the one I actually meant to do. 6x squared plus 3x. If you swap the, so if we try to solve this one, I mean, go for it. Actually, here, pause the video and see what you can do, okay? Okay, when I do this, again, 3x is the largest thing. 3x is the largest thing. So I'll have 2x plus 1 equals 0. And then I could see some of you being like, wait a second, this is tougher. And it is, you're right. But just don't let your algebra skills desert you, and you can easily figure it out. Probably a lot of you can see like, oh, if x equals 0, that's one of my answers. But what the heck will make this number be 0? Well, some of you can probably like kind of just guess it out that it's negative a half. But let's say you don't see that, okay? You can always figure it out because you know that this number has to equal 0. So write that and solve it. If you know that this number has to equal 0, just write 2x plus 1 has to equal 0. And then you can just solve it using algebra skills. Take away 1, and then you have 2x equals negative 1, and then divide by 2, and you have x equals, guess what? Negative a half. Okay? So the thing I wanted to show you was, even when you have a factor that's a little bit confusing to see what number that x will be to make it be 0, you can just set it equal to 0, do a little algebra, and you'll always see it, okay? So great. We now have just a and b, and we also had when it was just a, and we had when a and c. But you were probably wondering, Mr. H, tell me. Let's say that I got the full boat. Let's say I have A, B, and C. A, B, and C. So let's say that I have x squared plus 14x plus 48 equals 0. Holy camole, how do I solve that one? Okay, that is the last thing I want to teach you for this day when I'm not here. But to solve this one, you guys got to get good at another kind of factoring. So I'm going to do something that seems like it is not irrelevant, but it'll tie right back in here. Okay, you just got to get good at a skill that you haven't seen before. So one vocab word I want you to know is, this is sometimes called a trinomial. Trinomial. You can probably see a tri means 3, right? And it's called a trinomial because you have 3 terms here, okay? So how do you factor a trinomial? Let's go the other way around first. I'd love to be there to see if you can see if some of you see the pattern here, because there's a cool pattern that's about to happen. And I'm bummed to miss out on it. Let's go backwards. Let's expand some using the box method. So what do I mean by that? Here, let's say you have x plus 2, and then x plus 4, and then let's say you have x plus 3, x plus 1, and x plus 5, and x plus 7. And let's just give you a negative one also. Why not, right? X plus 3 and x minus 5. Okay, so expand these using the box method. And then I want you to write down their answers right next to them. That will make the pattern. You'll have the best shot at seeing the pattern then. So I know we need to factor, but to get there, I think we should go backwards first. So we're going to start with this factored form, and I want you to write their expanded form here, okay? So multiply these out, pause the video, multiply them out, and then we'll come back. Okay, so hopefully you got that this is x squared plus 6x plus 8. And this is x squared plus 4x plus 3. And this is x squared plus 12x plus 35. And this is x squared minus 2x minus 15. Okay, so there is a pattern here. I need you to be able to look at this and realize its factored form is over here. I need you to be able to look at this and realize its factored form is like this. I need you to be able to look at this and see its factored form, this and see its factored form. So there is a pattern going on here. There is a pattern with the 6 and the 8, and then what the factored version is. And there is a pattern with the 4, is that a 4? Can't read it. A 4 between the 4 and the 3, and what the numbers are over here. So pause the video and see if you can figure out the pattern. Okay, here's the answer. The pattern is this. You're always going to have, I think of these factors here as having 2 slots each. So if you need, let's say like this x squared plus 6x plus 8, if you need to factor that thing, you're going to have 2 sets of parentheses, and there's going to be 2 slots that you got to fill in each of those parentheses. Now the nice thing is this, the first slot in each one is always going to be an x. You might change it up a little bit later when you get better at this, but for now, it's always going to be an x. So, bam, bam. Got it? Now I only need to fill in the second slot in each of these, and I'm done. How do I do it? Well, here's the thing. If you notice a pattern, it goes like this. You need 2 numbers, right? One for this slot, one for this slot. You need 2 numbers. And what they have to do is they have to add to the B and multiply to the C. So just think about that. I mean, I know the answer is staring you in the face here, but what 2 numbers multiply to 6? I'm sorry, add to 6 and multiply to 8. It's 4 and 2. So, and it's positive 4 and 2. So I'm going to write positive 4, positive 2, and guess what? Did we just factor our first trinomial? We did. So when I have a trinomial, I'll just try to make one up here. Let's say that we have 11x plus 24. If I need to factor this guy here, I've set up my double set of parentheses, and I know x goes in the first slot of both of them. Okay, x goes in the first slot. And then ask yourself, what 2 numbers add up to this b, add up to 11, but multiply to the 24? If you know your times tables, it's going to be 8 and 3, okay? But for some of you, and this is still relatively easy, we're not dealing with negatives or anything. So it's actually, there's a nice method called sort of like the X method that will help you organize your findings. So let me show you how a lot of times kids will sort of figure this out. They'll go like this. They'll draw sort of a long X like this, and then oops, let me just straighten that out a bit. They'll put the top number here, 11, and they know that they have to find 2 numbers that add. So see how I just wrote a plus sign with a circle around it? And then they'll write the 24 here. And they know that those 2 numbers have to multiply to 24. So they'll just go like that. And then they'll just try a bunch of numbers. So they might be like, oh, I know, 6 and 4. 6 and 4 multiply to 24. So they'll put a 6 and a 4 there. And then they'll just check their work. 6 times 4, yay, it's 24. 6 plus 4, rats, it's 10, it's not 11. So 6 and 4 is not right. And then they'll say, oh, wait, I know, it's 2 and 12. Yay, I think I got it now. And then they'll say 2 times 12 is 24. 2 times plus 12 is, oh, rats, I don't have it. So you see what I'm saying? And then eventually they stumble on the fact that, oh, guess what? It's 8 and it's 3. That works. They're both positive. So x plus 8 here. And x plus 3 right there. And you've now factored your second trinomial. Okay. How does that help us? Well, check it out here. Let me go back to this guy right here. Guess what you can do here to solve it? You can get right on the factor tractor. So see if you can factor this thing and pause the video and come up with your answers, and then start the video again and we'll see if you got it. Okay, so if I'm going to set this, I'm going to do my little X method here. Okay, and I've got 14. They have to add to 14, and they have to multiply to 48. So what numbers add to 14 and multiply to 48? positive 6 and positive 8. Positive 6 and positive 8. So you could rewrite this in factored form like this. I do my double set of parentheses, and I got an x in the first slot, and I just figured out what goes in my second slot. A positive 6, bam, and a positive 8, bam, and it still equals 0. And now can you see what x has to be, the x answers have to be? You got one number times another number equals 0. So one of those numbers has to equal 0. So guess what? X equals negative 6, x equals negative 8, and you just solved your first quadratic equation with A, B, and C present. You can't always factor, okay? You can't always, like the Holy Grail one that I showed you, this guy right here, yeah, that one cannot be solved by factoring. But if the A and the B and the C are just right, then it can be solved by factoring. And it's a useful skill. You'll see it a bunch of times in our class, in Math 4, on the SAT, etc. So solving by factoring like this is great. Okay, I'm going to assign some IXL exercises. If you guys are able to follow along there, fantastic. Do the IXL stuff, and then have the rest of the period to yourselves quietly. Thanks.